So, welcome back to the next mastermind call with Every Move Collective. Thank you for joining us to learn about appraisals with John Copulos and Charles Baker. Before I dive into introducing John and Charles, I just want to remind you who we are. So myself, my mom, Eva, my brother, Dylan, we run a top producing team out of Westchester County, New York and Connecticut, just outside New York City. We also run the amazing organization of Every Move Collective at eXp Realty, which brings you these bi-monthly masterminds, where we focus on bringing you training from the movers and shakers of the industry. You can come together in community, build referral connections, and etc. So we do these twice a month, and we're really, really grateful to have you here with us. So we encourage you to be as conversational as possible. I will say, especially today, for those who have, let me just make sure everyone's muted. For those who have joined us before, you may have, seen a presentation from one of our guest speakers. Sometimes the calls are really meant to be more conversational, like a true mastermind where we can all chime in, ask questions, learn from one another. And so that's the space that we want to nurture today. So any questions that you have at all, this is an amazing opportunity to ask these appraisers. John runs a Facebook group for 80,000 people. It's a very unique opportunity to have such an intimate, access to his knowledge. But yeah, so we will get ready to dive in. Just a little bit about John. John has been appraising for close to 40 years. Like I said, he started a Facebook group 3 years ago called Ask the Appraiser, with the idea to basically give agents everything that they need to succeed, by nurturing, conversation between agent and appraiser. That group has grown to 80,000 agents, which could be like a whole mastermind topic on its own. How do you grow a group that big? It's insane. And yeah, this group just thrives with questions every day from agents all over the country, and appraisers moderate and answer those questions. And so we're really, really lucky to have him. And I actually don't know a lot about Charles. We just met today, so I'd love to hand over the mic to him, let him introduce himself, let John say a few words after that, and then we'll dive in.
Oh, thanks so much, Colby. Charles Baker, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. I'm coming to you today from our Airbnb in beautiful Lake Arrowhead, Southern California. We're up in the mountains, surrounded by pine trees, and the fall colors are just starting to turn the leaves. It's really just a beautiful, beautiful day today. Anyway, I've been appraising since 1988. I got started at the age of 4 years old. No, just kidding. Doing it a long time in Southern California. I'm based out of Pasadena, California. In 2018, I was president of the SoCal chapter of the Appraisal Institute. I've been serving in a regional capacity as well as on national committees with the Institute. We have a meeting next week. I'm chair of the California Government Relations Committee. And so we're meeting next week with our representative up in Sacramento, just talking about legislation. And realtors do the same thing, and we are on the same page on a lot of issues. So our little appraisal tribe is much smaller, but we also have a real interest in what happens up there in the sausage grinder of Sacramento, California. So anyway, I enjoy it. I do residential work, a lot of high-end stuff. I just finished a house in Malibu there's a whole backstory there. I have a lot of assignments, and I just love my colleagues, and I really enjoy the profession. And I'm thrilled to be here and answer your question. So thank you.
Thank you. And John, maybe you can give a little intro as well.
Thank you, Colby. Been appraising for close to 40 years. I like to say 5 decades, early 80s or mid 80s started for me. I love what I do. I love the flexibility of the business. I love to be able to coach my kids and spend time with them and hang out at their school activities and all that stuff. So that's one of the reasons why I got into the business. I started to make some good money in the business, and that kept me going for close to 40 years. About 3 years ago, I decided I wanted to start giving back to the industry a little bit and maybe make a little bit of a difference between the way the agent and the appraiser deal with each other. So I decided to start a small Facebook group, and I said, I just want to bridge the gap between the real estate agent and the appraiser, one agent at a time. And that was 3.5 years ago. And all of a sudden I got to 5,000, 7,000, 10,000. And now we're at 80,000 agents across the country on the group, asking questions every day and getting fantastic answers from great appraisers from across the country. So we're able to go macro with the any question about appraising. And then if somebody in Florida or in Texas has a question, we go micro, and we've got that Texas expert or that California expert in Charles Baker to answer the question about California. So that's what I love about the group. I think that's why the group is gelling so much, and everybody loves it. And I just want to add this. We have 50 real estate appraisers on the group that are our ambassadors to the group. These are folks that are vetted by me. I've checked into their reputation. I've checked into their work, such as Charles. Great recommendations, obviously. And these are the appraisers you want to go to talk about your challenges, your issues, and any way that an appraiser can help. Because I do want to let you guys know that an appraiser can help your business in many ways that some of you probably don't even realize. And hopefully at the end of today, you'll have a better idea of how a great appraiser can help you with your business.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
So
Great.
on that note, Colby has posted in the chat the, kind of the top 4 questions that we had billed this call with. And the very first one of that, your statement leads us right into, how can an appraiser help an agent be a superstar? And I would love you and Charles to give us your opinion on that. And I want to just say, as an agent myself, I'm always, looking for the knowledge and the expertise of appraisers like you, reputable, great appraisers. So if you could give us some ideas on what you think you can add or how you make us look like superstars.
Well, certainly. A good appraiser, first of all, you agents need to realize that not every appraiser is a good appraiser. And to you appraisers on this call that are watching and listening, my apologies, but that's just the way I feel, okay? Just like in every industry, not every plumber is great, not every general contractor, not every doctor, not every attorney. So I plead, when I tell an agent that we can help build their business, I plead with them that they should go out and do some research on a local appraiser, ask some other agents, ask some other appraisers that they might meet on an inspection. The reason why an appraiser can help an agent so much, not so much on the sale of a home when the mortgage, when a buyer is looking to buy a house and they go to a mortgage, because you can get any Tom, Dick, or Harry to do an appraisal at that point. But the reason why you need somebody like myself or the 50 other ambassadors that are on my group, why you need those folks to help, is because they can help you with so many different aspects of what might occur before or after a sale. So after a sale, appraisal comes in $25,000 low. You think they've missed something. You don't think it was a very good appraisal. You would then come to me, Eva, and say, John, do me a favor. Take a look at this appraisal. Give me an idea of your thoughts. I think X, Y, and Z were wrong with it. What do you think? I have helped countless agents over the years it's called a reconsideration of value. I have helped them craft those letters that go to the lender, and all of a sudden the appraiser sees it and says, hey, I missed this, I missed that, I got this problem. And all of a sudden the value is raised to the $25,000 that's needed. You guys want to be the sphere of influence for all your clients, current, past, and future, right? A client that you sold the house to 5 years ago might come to you and say, hey, you know what? Me and my husband are getting a divorce. I need a divorce appraisal. Do you have an appraiser for me? Boom. John Copulos is the guy, or Charles Baker is the guy. Let me put you in touch with him. Charles and I are going to give your client white glove service. We are going to help your client with what they need. And therefore, your client is going to say, oh my God, Eva was fantastic. I love her. Let's go. I want her to sell my house. I want to buy my next house. I'm going to tell my cousin about Eva. Okay. Or that's another client might come back and say, you know what? My father just passed away. We need an estate appraisal. Do you have an appraiser?
Yeah.
Or Eva, you might have a seller that thinks their house is worth $800,000, but it's worth $7,000. That's called a stubborn seller. They're not going to listen to you. They're not necessarily going to listen to you, although they should, but they might not. So what you're going to do then is say, hey, stubborn seller, what do you say we bring in Copulos? He can help with the appraisal. He's a unbiased party. He's a third party. Let him help. So that's just 2 or 3 ways that an appraiser can help. I'll let Charles dig in because I don't like speaking too long, and I've already gone 30 seconds too long.
Charles,
John,
something
yeah,
there?
you covered so many bases, John, and I applaud your answer. You know, appraisers really get into the weeds in terms of the data analytics side of things. So perhaps we have a better handle on what all of the different motivations of the parties to a transaction might value. So that's something we can bring to the table. We haven't, you know, when you do an appraisal, we're analyzing 10, 12, 15, 20 comps, and then we're running our market data analysis on perhaps hundreds of sale transactions. So we can bring that to, we can help explain that for your client. How does bathroom count factor into the overall value of a property? How does the design and appeal elements factor into the value or the marketability of a property? Those are things we can bring to the table. Also, you guys are going up against the Zillows of the world. And we know that Zillow does not capture all of the units of comparison that an appraiser does. So that's something we can help you explain to your clients why there's a big difference between what a Zillow estimate of value might give. And of course, you're going to have your clients coming to you and say, well, Zillow says it's worth X. Well, no, Zillow is wrong, and here's why. So we can help with that as well. And it just helps, like realtors have lots of references in their Rolodex. They've got electricians and plumbers, and they've got inspectors. Why not have a set of appraisers in your pocket as well that you can refer business to? It'll make you look good if you refer a client to an appraiser who really knows their salt. And of course, you're going to be dealing with bank appraisers who you have no idea who they are. You want to be able to have someone that can come in after the fact, perhaps, and deal with a reconsideration of value request.
Sure, sure. So I'm going to add in my 2 cents on how I think that you guys can help me be a superstar from an agent's perspective. And if there's anybody here who wants to throw in their comments on this, please don't hesitate. For me, setting expectations for my clients prior to either listing a home or putting in an offer for a buyer, knowing what appraisers will look at, better understanding the comps that I'm looking at, helps set their expectations better. And then when they hear or the appraiser ends up coming up similar to what we talked about, it looks like I know what I'm talking about. So from my perspective, being educated by appraisers, whether it be before the actual appraisal happens or when I'm listing a home, it's really advantageous for me to have those conversations. I've had them with John. John taught me, actually, for those East Coasters, we were looking at a co-op. I had a co-op that was going to be a real challenge to appraise. And John said, well, what's the number of shares? And this actually was a deal that I did with my son, Dylan. And it was a studio apartment that lived like a 1-bedroom, but it was a studio apartment. And if I looked at the studio apartments, we were going to underappraise by a ton. And John said, well, take a peek at those, shares. And when I did, I was able to pull in a lot of the 1-bedrooms based on shares. And the appraiser who appraised the property looked at that too. I highlighted it. Maybe he would have looked at it anyway, but I was able to highlight it and, just get that point across. So if anybody wants to jump on in here, I see a question here in the chat.
Yeah, we've got a couple. Kelly, what things add value to a home?
Kelly's asking what?
Charles, either one of you guys want to field that? What do you think? If I don't know if this is what Kelly meant, but if somebody was, trying to add value to their home and make improvements or something like that, some things add value and some things don't. From a real estate perspective, from your perspective, what things add value and what things don't?
Yeah, Charles, I'd love you to answer that, but before you do, I would just like to tell everybody on this call, gang, I want you to feel comfortable asking us any kind of question you might have about appraising. This is an opportunity to talk to guys with close to 40 years of experience. We'll tell it like it is. We'll give you real life answers. So try not to be shy. Either chat or come on. It would be better if we all saw you and were able to chat with you. But Charles, if you don't mind answering that question, that would be great.
Just read the question again, because I'm on my phone and I'm not able to see the chat.
Kelly, you want to just take yourself off mute and ask?
Oh,
Yes, hello, Charles and John. So my question is, what things actually add value to a home? So for example, does a pool add value to a home? What kinds of improvements are buyers looking for, that they're willing to make an offer on that really, makes the home like their dream home? What things are really valuable to them?
well, that's a great question. So let's take your example of a pool, and of course that'll be geographic dependent. If you're in in a desert community, a pool is going to add probably more value than it would if you're in a coastal community or in a mountain community. We have to look at now, if the pool is already there at the property, it will add value, more than likely it will. If you have a client that is contemplating building a pool to add value, my recommendation would be probably that's not the best use of your money, because you'll find that a pool is going to result in sunk costs. It'll cost more to build it than it would probably add to the value of the property. Okay. It's a general rule. It doesn't mean that would apply in every case. Other things that would add to the design and appeal of a house would be curb appeal. That's a big deal. Curb appeal may not necessarily translate into more value, but what that'll translate into is more showings and probably a faster sale, fewer days on market and more traffic. So that's something else you can do. Coordinating color schemes. You want to make sure the systems are functioning, because if an inspector comes through, they're going to find if they start finding a laundry list of problems with the house, that's going to cause your potential buyer to hit the pause button perhaps, or come back with contingencies. They're going to ask for things to be repaired. So if there are issues with some dry rot or some mold or perhaps some electrical issues that are not up to code, it might be a good idea to spend the money to really deal with those things. John, do you have any additions to that topic?
Sure, I certainly do. I do like your curb appeal. We only have the one first time to make an impression, so I think it's important that a house looks good to anybody who's driving by it or driving up to it, even for an appraiser. We are human, and it will affect us in some way. But obviously, Kelly, a modern kitchen in good shape is going to be important. Baths are important. Finished basement will bring added value to a home. Any amenity that you think would be important to your typical buyer, you always want to show a house that will appeal to as many buyers as possible. With COVID, the pool and the outside patio area became so key, right, to so many people over the last couple of years. So 3 or 4 years ago, where I live, a pool may have been worth $20,000 extra, but now it might be worth $40,000 because it's in demand so much more. Nobody wants to be locked in their house. How about those crazy patios with the beautiful outside kitchens and all that? Years ago, you know what? It was kind of like an over improvement, but now we're forced, because the market is calling for these type of things. So that's the type of thing. It's an amenity that the typical buyer in your market is looking for. That's what is going to push market value on a home. Right now, turnkey is king, right? Yes. Nobody wants to buy a house that they're going to have to do $50,000, $75,000, $200,000 worth of work to. So those are all important aspects. Does that help you, Kelly?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. I'm glad you made it.
Thanks, Kelly.
Will's got a question.
What's happening, Will?
Hey, John. Hi, Charles. How are you?
I'm well, good.
I'm in North Jersey. I cover Bergen County, all the way south to the shore, and I use RPR, Realtor Property Resource, a lot actually, for prepping for listings, prepping for putting in buyer's offers. Of course, I pull manual comps and I do a whole separate analysis like that. So I want to hear your feedback on the RPR engine. It's, the AVM that it comes up with, and how accurate can we get on our own when we manually adjust for the comps in there. Because I just did one, for today's appointment and today's offer that's going in tonight.
Yeah, is RPR sort of like plugging numbers into Redfin or Zillow? You plug a property address in, and it gives you a data point. Is that right, or a range?
So it's a
RPR.
add-on system to our MLS, I believe.
Okay.
It's not something that a consumer can go to. It's realtor only. Creates a nice report. It looks really professional. I just want to get your feedback. If you knew about it.
I'm not as familiar with it. What data elements does that software package include or analyze? How is that proprietary over and above, say, something that's based upon the public record?
That's a good question. I'm not sure where they pull their data from. It kind of feels like you're getting a guesstimate, but I feel like the numbers are much more accurate.
Okay.
When I actually close. I just sold a house in Emerson. And the RPR report I pulled up at 950,000, literally, that was the appraised value. So
one of the issues we deal with when we're dealing with multiple data sources is reconciling discrepancies in, say, reported square footage. The public records may have 2,000 square feet for this house, but the MLS will report it at 2,800 square feet because they're including perhaps an ADU or an addition that wasn't permitted or not reflecting on the public record, or perhaps there's 2 dwellings on the lot and they're combining the 2 square footages. As appraisers, we have to try to parse that out because it's not fair to compare a 2,000 square foot house that's all under one roof with a house that, say, is 1,300 plus a 700 square foot ADU. That's 2 separate structures. Right. So that's something to parse out, and I struggle sometimes with some of these automated valuation models that don't have access to that level of that granularity in the data. Right, John.
So I guess a follow-up question to that, because they allow us to set our parameters and bedroom, bathroom count, square footage. What would have more weight? Would it be a property with if I'm searching for a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, if I include 3-bedroom, two full bath, which is just upgrading that half bath with the same square footage, is that a better comp analysis than completely excluding the 2-bathroom? If they're the same or similar square footage.
Will, what I'm loving about your question is that you're using an outside resource to try to figure things out and better your game. So I applaud you for that, and I want to tell you that keep doing it, especially if the numbers are making sense to you and to your market. So I'm not that familiar with RPR. I'm not going to tell you I'm familiar with it. So I would say keep doing it, okay? But realize that you need to. I don't know how long you've been in the business as far as an agent goes, but you need to rely on other agents in your office. Talk to them. Poll them about their thoughts about the RPR and see how they're feeling about it. So that's the first thing with the RPR. Second thing I want to say to you is that you definitely want to look at a 2-bath home when you have a 1.5 bath home. So you don't want to go crazy with your range of what you're going to be looking for. But let's just talk about a 2,000 square foot colonial that has 1 bathroom on the 2nd floor and nothing on the 1st floor. You're going to try to approach this house and say, what is the typical buyer that's going to be looking at this 2,000 square foot colonial with 1 bathroom? What other homes in the area will they be looking at? Will they be looking at a 1,600 square foot colonial with 1 bath? They certainly will. So you want that in your criteria. Will they be looking at a 2,400 square foot colonial with 3 bedrooms with 2 baths? They certainly will. So you want that to be in your criteria. What they won't be looking at is that 3,700 square foot colonial with 2.5 baths. So you keep that far away.
Yeah.
But the one thing
square footage is so square footage is the first key. What about switching from home style? So the home style that I'm looking at for this appointment today is a ranch, and I'm pretty much excluding everything besides ranch and maybe Cape Cods. in my manual search. Is that accurate? I mean, that's the way I've done it in the past.
Well, that's pretty good. But how about that split level? Don't you think that split level kind of has some similarity? Or again, I'm going to use this phrase a lot, the typical buyer. The typical buyer in your market, they're going to look at the ranch, they're going to look at the split level also. They may not look at the contemporary, they may not look at the colonial or the Tudor, but they're going to look at that. Then you also, if your ranch has a finished basement, Will, you want to look at a high ranch, right? Or a raised ranch, because
Ranch, yeah.
it's two levels. So, you know, their style is very important. I like it. When you say you have a ranch, you're going to look at ranch, you're going to look at Cape, you're going to look at high ranch, and you're going to look at split.
Right.
And why do I say that? Because the living quarters and sleeping quarters are on the same level in the ranch. You want to try to find houses that are similar to that. And I call the Cape a tweener because it's in between a colonial and a ranch. It's got two bedrooms upstairs, it's got 2 bedrooms downstairs, so you can throw in a Cape. So the answer is yes. If you want to get into the weeds a little bit about it, Will, I'm happy to talk to you offline about how you would comp out your specific subject property, just to give you an idea. So I hope that helps.
Do you guys have a service, or do appraisers ever have a service to do like an appraisal light? You know, of course, you know, appraiser can be hired, you can do a full appraisal, you know, X amount of dollars, regardless of the, you know, property size, two families or more. Is there such thing as like an appraisal light, like an extended, you know, service? You know, is that what does that look like for cost if I ever did want to do that for a listing or even a buyer, a larger, you know, a larger purchase?
Well,
Is that real?
many times you might have a buyer that's paying cash, right? And they just want to make sure that they're getting a good deal on the property, so they'll have an appraiser
Sure.
come in. But to answer your question, is there a light appraisal? There is. There are, you know, a typical appraisal for a, you know, a conventional home is going to run you $500 to $700 typically. Okay.
Right.
But if you say, hey, listen, I don't need everything in there, all right? I just need the basics. Give me an idea of what value is worth. There are appraisers, and there you can certainly, once you find that appraiser that you can deal with on a regular basis, they'll be happy to help you. They'll either charge you for a 15-minute call or a half-an-hour call, or they won't. I mean, I speak to agents all the time. I don't charge anybody for what you're kind of saying. But Charles may have, you know, it might be a little different on the left coast. So Charles, if you can jump in.
Well, yes, there's different scopes of work. So a full appraisal, we all kind of have an idea of what a full appraisal is. That means where we identify the problem. There's a 6-step process. We do a full physical inspection of the property. We measure the property, verify permits, produce a report with comps and a grid, make adjustments, and boom, spit out a value. There are, there's a restricted use report where we only have one intended user. There's an abbreviated report where it's basically just a short description of the property and the neighborhood and a grid with 3 or 4 comps and then a conclusion of value. So the appraisal process is the same, but it's the level of reporting can vary, and we can do something that's very minimal on the reporting side of things, and that'll result in less cost. We can actually just write a letter, an opinion letter. Here's the appraised value. This is what I concluded. All the data is in my work file. You don't need to see it. Here's what the value is.
Is that like a BPO?
Different levels.
Yeah.
Is that like a BPO, he asked you, Charles?
Well, a BPO, yes, a BPO with an appraiser's signature and certifications. Essentially, that would be a good analogy.
What does that look like dollar amount wise, just in general? So I can tell.
I don't do them, but I would imagine that you could probably get something like that for, $250, an exterior, going through the process and concluding to value with a short report. Maybe.
Yeah, I would agree with something like that. Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Will.
Dylan, are you? I thought you were saying something, but you look like you're on mute. I don't hear you. No?
I can't hear him, but
Yeah.
while he figures that out, maybe Kinga can ask her question. I think she's next up.
Yep.
Thanks. Thank you. I'm sorry. It's early here, so I'm not going on camera. I just
That's
took my
okay.
daughter
King
to
is
school.
tuning in from Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
So I have a question, just, going back to my own home sale that I've always wondered this, and I just never bothered asking. I just kind of chalked it up to it's gone. But so my home, just to kind of give you a quick example, it was a 5,000 square foot lot backing up to a green space, trees and all, where you can build a front load garage, 4 bedrooms, office, dining room, 2,100 square feet. And across the street, they had 2,100 square foot homes or 2,000 square foot homes, same 4 bedrooms, office and all of that on a similar size lot, a little bit smaller, but with a garage in the back. So there wasn't the green space or even like a typical backyard where you just have a yard and a front loading garage. So garage was in the back. And when the appraisal came in, it was based off of that back entry garage and kind of a little side yard kind of thing. And obviously the value came in low on my home, and I know what the sales were like. I know what the desires of the buyers were like, and a much nicer lot, backing up to trees versus an alley. So my question is, when I think I spoke to, this is going back 10 years, when I spoke to the appraiser, he goes, well, do you have 4 bedrooms? Do you have a garage? Do you have this? Like, it was all about the house, totally disregarded any of the outside elements of, what would a typical buyer want? Do they want an alley or do they want trees? So how much value is placed on that kind of situation? Where is it strictly on the home, or is 5,000 square foot lot in like backing up to an alley or a street the same as 5,000 square foot lot backing up to a nice protected green belt?
Good questions. Good questions. So location is probably one of the most important factors that goes into determining the value of the property. What it sounds to me like what this appraiser did was neglect that part of the analysis. Look for other sales that had that similar locational amenity. Now, there's 2 aspects to location. If this is helpful, I just want to lay this out for you. The first is what is actually touching the property. In your case, you are touching the greenbelt, proverbially touching it. The other aspect of location would be the neighborhood. What kind of a neighborhood are you in? In your case, you have a greenbelt view. You've got a front-loading garage, so you probably have a larger backyard with more frontage to the greenbelt in the back of your property. That is certainly a desirable amenity, and I would have challenged that appraiser to look for other properties that have similar locational amenities.
Mm-hmm. I did, and it too. Basically, it was like, no, your house is the same as it is the other one. So I mean, it is what it is at this point. But I always was baffled with that analysis, especially being a realtor who sells these homes. And okay, so I was right.
So, Kinga, real quick, I want to ask you a quick question. Were you the selling agent, or was it your own home?
It was my own home.
Okay.
It was my own home.
So,
yeah, I wasn't representing myself, but it was my own house, and I was, obviously irritated too.
What's that? What did you say, Charles?
What was the purpose of the appraisal? For a refinance transaction?
No, I was actually selling the house. I was the seller. I had another agent working the deal for me, but I was stunned. I was stunned because it came in low, and then that was the explanation. Well, it's a 4-bedroom house, same square footage. Does it have a garage? Yeah, it has a garage, but it was just like, and he just didn't take the green belt or any of that into consideration, which, completely.
He was one of those appraisers that John warned you about.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, that's what I thought, and it was either not
That's
sell
exactly
it.
right. But I do want to add one thing, Kinga, and it doesn't help you in any way. It might help you in future, but I want to do it for the agents on here. You need to figure out what the objection is going to be before it even happens. You need to come up with an answer before the objection even happens. So what I would have suggested to you as a selling agent or as a seller, talk to the appraiser when he's there about the situation and say, hey, I've got the green belt behind me. I know there's a sale across the street that sold for 400 and I'm selling for 425. But here, it's an alley, it's got a busy street, it's got this, it's got that. It really doesn't compare to this fantastic view and this quiet view that I have. So I want you to take a look at that. So agents, when you have a deal that you're having an appraiser, make sure you go in front of any kind of issues you might have. So, hey, I know that there's a house that sold 2 blocks away for $25,000 less. I want you to know that it was on the market for 185 days and it was a divorce transaction. Or I want you to know it was on the market for 150 days and it had no finished basement. The listing sheet says it's got 4,000 square feet, but that's including 1,200 square feet in the basement. It's only 2,800 square feet. You got to get on top of it if you want to be successful and grow your business the way you should. Be on top of that stuff.
John, I'm really glad you said that, because that was one of the questions that we had posed initially. I do want to jump over to Cindy in just a second, but I want to just reconfirm that it's okay to talk to the appraiser when they're there. That's what you're saying, right?
No doubt about it. It's certainly okay to talk to the appraiser. Talk facts with the appraiser.
What I would do, some appraisers are much more, some appraisers have no personality at all, and they just want you to just get out of the way. But in those cases, and probably in every case, I would have a packet, some information that's been printed out with some handwritten notes, perhaps some verifications that you've already done. You've gotten into the weeds. You've done some of the dirty work for the appraisers, so that if it does come back, you can say all of this was already provided. And in your case, perhaps maybe you have some sales that backed up to green belts in other neighborhoods, and you can use those as pairings.
I had all the information and I argued my case, but it was more like, it's almost felt like, hey, I made a mistake, but I'm not going to chalk it up. Like, I'm not going to own up to it. This is what it is, and this is my final thing, and this is that, right? So it was just one of those odd situations, and it just happened to be my own house. But yeah, it just sucked. But I was always kind of baffled by, like, how much value does it really have, or is it just strictly more of the home? But it sounds like, okay, this was, it should have been way more value for that.
Yeah, back to John's, no great agents. No great agents.
We depend on you just as much as you depend on us, I'm telling you. It's a simple.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear.
Thank you.
Cindy, you want to jump in there?
Hey,
I sure do.
I think Anthony had his hand up first, and just in the spirit of going in order, if you don't mind, Cindy, let's let him
not at all.
Sorry.
Thanks.
Hey all. So I got 2 things with what you guys were just talking about with getting in the weeds. I'm a big believer. As a listing agent, I meet the appraiser out there with a handful of comps to help them do their job a little bit easier and to get the number that I listed the property at. So I already looked at the comps. Let me give them to you. Hopefully you can use them. And, Charles, to your point, if I'm using something, how long it's been on the market, days on the market is a big thing to me. So I point those things out when I give them a packet and say, hey, here you go. So that's that. I mean, that's what I do. But if we step back a little bit to it's a shame Will's not on here, but RPR, I use RPR extensively. And basically what RPR is, it's tied into our local MLS, and it's looking at on-market properties, off-market properties, and then the public history of sold properties. And that's how it comes up with its value marketization market number. And then what it does is it gives you a gauge, 5 stars, and it tells you based upon the 5 stars how confident it is with the number that it's providing. So for example, I have a property that I'm getting ready to list that's in an area, and I didn't like the numbers it was giving me because there wasn't enough comps, and it was only giving me a confidence star of 1. So I went out, looked at the property, called up one of my buddies that's an appraiser, and we're going out on Saturday and we're going to appraise the property. This way, there's no question whatsoever. It's not about what I think. It's about what they're going to turn around and pull. And then I'll help them with pulling comps.
I love it. I love it, Anthony. It sounds like you're doing everything right. The only thing I want to say is in the beginning of your conversation with us, you mentioned that you give the appraiser the comps that are going to make the deal. You don't necessarily want to go into it with that mindset. You want to go into it as, these are the best comparables that I think are there, period. Don't be afraid. If you have a $600,000 sales price, do not be afraid to give an appraiser a sale that occurred at $525,000. A
Agreed.
lot of agents are. They'll never do that. So I'll get a packet, and every comparable that they give me is above our selling price. That's not going to help us, and it's actually going to diminish your professionalism in the eyes of the appraiser. So you want to what they call bracketing the sales price. So if you're at 6, that 525 sale might only have 1 car garage. Bang, it's going to be a $20,000 adjustment. It might have an unfinished basement while you had a finished basement. Boom, another $25,000. All of a sudden, that 525 sale is at 590, and it's justifying your $600,000 sales price beautifully. So I just would like to give you that little tidbit. Don't be afraid to give an appraiser a good comp that can be adjusted upward.
Correct. And I do that. So if I misspoke with the way that I said that, you're right. Like I got one the other day where we don't have a garage, but yet I gave 2 comps where there is a garage and there's an unfinished basement. And this house has a finished basement with a finished area for the garage. So yes, I totally agree with you.
Great, beautiful.
Thanks, Anthony.
No, real quick, it sounds to me like that RPR program is sort of a regression analysis. And I do a lot of that sort of thing, take a whole group of sales and assign ordinals or numerals to all of the different units of comparison, and then run it through a regression analysis, and it spits out a number with an R value and an R squared value, which is your confidence levels of the value. It sounds to me like that's what RPR is doing. So if it is, that's good. That's a good tool to use.
It is. And I'll tell you, here's mostly how I use it. I take it and I create out what's called a mini report from it, and it gives you value. And I put it in a really nice portfolio with a bunch of other stuff that's in there. And then I take some swag, and I take that swag, I put it in a nice tote bag. And then I go around to the geographic area and I put them in their mailbox, hang them on the door, put them on the front steps, and you pick up listings off of it.
Outstanding.
So that's predominantly how I use it. I use it as a tool to generate business, because I just want that one person to raise their hand, and it was worth the time and effort.
So you're farming your neighborhoods.
Correct. I'll farm the neighborhoods, or there's a service called Remind, and I'll say, hey, give me a geographic area and show me everybody that's been in that area for at least 20 years and has at least $50,000 or $100,000 in equity. And then I target those properties. That's a good way of using Remind to turn around. And look, last year I made $100,000 off of 3 properties, but it ended up turning into 5 sales because there was 2 repurchases off of it.
Yeah, man, fantastic. You sound like a real winner, and that's fantastic to hear. Good stuff. Keep it up, man. And
stay alive.
share your knowledge with others, man, because there's a lot of agents that need the help. So share your knowledge and get on our group. Ask the Appraiser. Don't forget about that. I want you there because you can add a lot to the group.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Everybody should just jump on that. We're going to Cindy now?
Yeah, Cindy, and then I wanted to mention we do have a couple of questions that came in the chat, so I'll touch on them after Cindy is done.
Okay, great.
Thank you for your time, and thanks for inviting us to that Facebook page, because I think that'll be very knowledgeable as things change. My question, I'm here in Denver, between Boulder and Denver, and mine's more about mountain views. I've got 2 properties, exactly the same square footage, exactly the same layout. One backs to amazing mountain views. One has a 3-car garage. Would you value them the same?
No, let me take that, because in Southern California, we have a lot of hills and mountains, and views are ubiquitous. I mean, every property is going to have some sort of a view or not, but the views are definitely factor into it. So there's different, okay, I'm going to get into the weeds a little bit. There's different ways to classify a view. One is the horizontal span. How wide, how broad is the view? Is it peekaboo? Is it 90 degrees? Is it 180, or is it 360? That's one factor. The other factor is vertical angle of view. What are you able to look down on something, and then are you able to look up and see the sky with, and then how far is your view? Are you looking out miles and miles of beautiful forest or a valley or city lights, or in Southern California, you look out and you see the ocean? Those are some components. Another component would be, is the view obstructable? Is at some point in the future, could someone else build a house and block your view, or could a neighbor's trees grow to the point where your view is blocked? Those are all factors that we look at. But bottom line, a house with a view is going to be worth more than a house without a view. No doubt about it.
I guess I'm just thinking of it from the other house has a 3-car garage.
Okay.
We do not have a 3-car garage, but we've got the view. Would it be fair to say that I could price them both the same?
Well, no, that wouldn't be unfair. That would be a reasonable proxy. Sometimes we don't have an exact match, so we look at proxy variables. Is a garage, a 3-car garage, a suitable proxy for a view? Perhaps. In Colorado, I would imagine, I don't appraise it, but I would imagine that having more covered parking would be very valuable in Colorado, especially during the wintertime.
Right.
But also people move to Colorado for the views. So you'd have to kind of look at that.
Right.
Charles, that was a fantastic answer. And Cindy, it's a beautiful question. In my world, I call that offsetting characteristics. So you're wondering if the view is offset by that comparable 3-car garage. And as Charles said, it very well may be, depending on how great the view is. Many times I might have a house that I'm appraising that is overlooking a lake, but it's on a very busy road in the front. Those characteristics offset the view and the negative characteristic of the traffic. So I might call that an average situation. They offset each other. So your characteristics offset each other potentially. The market's going to tell you, the appraiser is going to know whether a 3-car garage, is a 3-car garage worth $150,000 that this view is worth? I have no idea, but that's what they're going to look at, so.
Probably not. I'm just trying to see if they kind of equal themselves out. But thank you. That was really good analogy, especially I liked, how much of the view and vertically and horizontally. That really kind of, I heard that. And that does make a difference from a peak of view for something that is, unobstructed, not going to be built on, XYZ. So, and I have a part 2 question. I don't know if you guys already talked about it. I don't think I messed about the compensation being removed from the MLS and how you guys are handling that, or is that a question that's coming up?
Well, I can speak in California, the combined regional MLS has voted to omit the compensation that's paid to the buyer's agent for active listings, for properties that are under contract and pending listings. But once the listing sells, that information then is populated. So we can see it at that point.
Oh, okay. So I'm in Colorado, so I got to find out what our local appraisers can see.
Yeah.
But even still, we can, as realtors in pricing a property, I'm not going to be able to factor that into my pricing strategy either.
No, it's true. It's a real can of worms, I'm telling you. I'm not sure
That's
what
fine.
But it is what it is.
It is what it is. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much.
You mentioned there were some questions in there, and I don't know what they are. Do you want to point them out?
So JJ Engberg, he asked a little earlier and then kind of expanded on his question a little bit. Originally, it was how accurate do you think the AVM is in the CR MLS, and then he expanded that core logic is where that is, and is it accurate for pricing the home along with the comps?
Did you guys hear that? If not, I can repeat
It's
it.
a little bit distorted, but you were asking about how accurate AVMs are. And then you'd mentioned core logic. Well,
Core Logic has an AVM in the CR MLS. How accurate is that for pricing a home along with the comps?
I'll take it real quick, John. Then you can follow up. I would say that I was involved with the Appraisal Institute, and we were developing guidelines for how AVMs should be regulated and managed and relied upon with some expanded language. There's many different types of AVMs, and some AVMs actually are called chain AVMs, which you plug in an address, it'll run 6 or 7 different AVM algorithms, and it will pick the one that it believes is the most accurate. So it's become very complicated. The problem is we don't really know. It's a black box solution. We don't really know what goes into developing those opinions, what data it has access to. As far as the Core Logic product specifically, I couldn't speak to that one AVM, but I would lump that together with all the others. Core Logic does, of course, own a lot of the MLSs in the country, so they do have access to that in the public record data, and I'm sure they have the ability to get really down into the weeds. But We talked about views just a second ago. How does an AVM know what sort of a view a property has, or what condition the property is in, or if the square footage is reported accurately? There's so many factors that AVMs just cannot capture. John?
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, Charles is 100% correct. The cookie cutter, the AVM is going to work great on the cookie cutter home, but it's that special home, it's that challenging appraisal, it's that challenging listing that you got to throw the AVM out, and you got to use good old fashioned legwork and your knowledge and an appraiser's knowledge to kind of figure things out like that. I will tell you that the appraisers are shitting a brick about AVM right now, because AI is getting better and better and better, and we need to figure out a way that we can be helpful to the agent and the consumer, because a lot of people are starting to rely on Zillow and AVMs and all that type of thing. So something we're trying to figure out.
And last thing, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, of course, they are data mining appraisal reports. They have tens of millions of appraisals that they have aggregated and now are able to use that data. And that's why we're seeing so many appraisal waivers now, where full appraisals are not even used anymore. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac can spit out a value, and then that value is warranted. In other words, the lender can make a loan on that value, and the reps and warrants go with that loan. So that's an issue. The flip side of that is, and just 30 seconds. The flip side of that is, because over the past couple of years, with the rise in interest rates, the number of sales has dropped dramatically. So the data that is populating the Fannie and Freddie database has been very much fewer of those data points coming into the database. So eventually the databases are going to become stale unless they get new data. So that's the one thing that's going to be interesting to watch going forward.
We've got 2 more questions and about 5-6 minutes left. So I'll start with this one. Elaine asked, how about unpermitted work adding value or not? We're in San Francisco with many in-law units, often unpermitted.
Please take that, Charles.
Okay, yeah, sure. So yeah, we see a lot of unpermitted work. An appraiser standard is going to was it built in a workmanlike fashion? We are not licensed contractors, most of us, so we cannot opine as to whether everything is up to code, but we can opine on what we see. And if we see something that is questionable, we will condition the appraisal on an inspection. Some lenders will absolutely not loan on a property with an unpermitted addition. Some municipalities will not allow additions to be done if they are unpermitted. Others are more flexible, and I would imagine San Francisco, it's pretty ubiquitous. Unpermitted additions, little granny flats, that sort of thing. They do add value. Obviously, you can rent those things out. They produce rental value, which adds to the overall value of the property. So it's more of a case-by-case basis.
Awesome.
John,
Thank you.
You want to answer that from New York point of view?
So, well, it was a San Francisco question. I wanted Charles to take a look at it. ADUs are not that common over here, but again, it's a characteristic, it's an amenity that is going to add value to the home.
But here you do see, you're right, ADU is not that common, but you do see a lot of unpermitted work done in basements and or bathrooms, etc., in the New York, New Jersey, tri-state region.
So as far as the unpermitted work goes, a lot of lenders are not too concerned with that over here where I am. But we report what we see, and it's up to the lender or maybe the title report. Is that bathroom in the basement legal? Is it permitted? We are not, as far as I see it, we are not the CO police. So we report what we see, and as Charles said, if they have a beautiful 1,000 square foot addition on the back of the house that free flows through the home, it should make no difference to the appraiser. Now, whether it was unpermitted is a different story, and that could come back to haunt an agent or a seller. But as far as the appraisal goes, not a problem as far as I see it.
Yeah, it's going to be a disclosure issue if it's a sale, and the seller's got to disclose any unpermitted additions, and that may affect the transaction. It may affect the price. It may affect the buyer's.
Interestingly enough, for those of us who are here in New York, we only started sharing the disclosure documents in the last maybe 6 months or so. Prior to that, you could pay a $500 fee and not fill it out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just changed. So it's an interesting little twist that we're dealing with this year.
No doubt, no doubt.
Cole,
Lot
did
of-
you have one other, I thought?
We have one last
Yeah, we have
question
one
from-
more
Oh, Dylan, we can
from
actually hear you
Bill.
a lot better now.
Yeah, I put my headphones back in. They're charged now. They died on me halfway through, so
There you go.
that's
You
why the
take-
mic wasn't working well. But we have a question from our team member Bill, and he said, "What is the difference between an appraisal for tax assessment agreement versus for a sale?"
Great question to end on.
There you go.
Real quick, I'm doing some tax appeal work in LA County right now. I've got several huge properties. A gentleman he's worth about $40 billion, and he's challenging the assessments on his properties. The appraisal methodology is the same. We're looking at market value, but the data value is going to be when the property transferred, and that's when the new basis was established. So that's really the only difference that I could identify. It's the methodology is the same, the approaches to value are the same. My reports that I've produced for assessment appeal work, they're pretty rigorous. 120, 130 pages long for a single family dwelling. John?
Very nice, Charles. Yeah, so Charles had the major point. It's going to be the same legwork for us. We're going to do the same kind of research. Few things are different. Maybe the tax year might be 2023 as opposed to a current value, that type of thing. But the legwork is supposed to be the same. There really should be no difference in a tax appraisal or a regular bank appraisal, let's say.
Unless the definition of value is different. There's market value, there's fair market value, there's highest value, which is used in condemnation work. There's book value, accounting value, all of those different types of value. As appraisers, we deal with market value or fair market value.
Yep.
Excellent.
That was fun.
That
I
was
enjoyed that.
fun.
Great.
A lot of questions for Ask the Appraisers. That's good. I like that. That's really cool.
It is.
And we really appreciate you both, John and Charles, for popping in here and answering our questions. And Colby will share with everybody that's on the call, the recording, as well as your contact information, a way to get, in touch with you, as well as be part of your Facebook group. Colby just put on the screen our lineup for Q4. I can't believe we're in Q4. This is so crazy. So thank you. We hope everybody learned something and enjoyed being with us today.
Yeah.
And
Look forward
we'll
to
see you
seeing
next
everybody on the group. That'll be great.
Thank you so
Sounds
much,
great.
Charles and John. Thank you, everyone, for participating, for all your great questions. We will see
Thank
you.
you.
Bye, Kinga.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye,
guys.
everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.